Okay, next up we have got The Great Nothing, the debut album from cosmic Los Angeles alt prog rockers Magna Zero. So, if you listen to episode 23 of the podcast, you'll remember we talked about their single Endure, which we were both really positive about and were keen to hear more from the band. I think at the time we talked a little bit about their All Must Go EP as well, which has got 4 of the 11 tracks on here. So, I mean, I've certainly heard a few of these songs before, so I kind of knew it was likely to be a pretty solid album. So Jason from the band sent us an early stream, so thanks to Jason for that. But the album has been out for just over a month now, so you can go and listen to it right now if you want. It's quite a long album. It's
just under an hour, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like 57 minutes long, which can sometimes be tough to maintain, that sort of a high level of quality and consistency over that time. Do you feel that the band have managed to do that?
I think in terms of musicianship, like, you know, it's top drawer musicianship. There's absolutely no doubt about that whatsoever. Yeah, I did feel as if there was maybe a bit of a dip in energy from maybe about track 5 or 6 onwards. I think I said Oblivion onwards. But that's just my own kind of personal opinion. The first track, All Must Go, I would say the first 4 or 5 tracks are phenomenal. The opening track, All Must Go, is an absolute banger in my opinion. It opens with this kind of reverberating electric guitar which gradually starts to take form. There's a kind of depth, a warmth and clarity to it that immediately caught my attention, and it's kind of swiftly followed by this kind of driving drum beat and a choppy bass line. The vocal refrain of hold steady, hold steady, hold steady, because anything goes. Get ready because all must go. It's just brilliant. I love that. I absolutely love that. It's something you just can't help but sing along to. Just some beautiful kind of soaring guitars at the bridge as well. That's kind of almost transcendental. It just kind of just elevates that song to another level. And I think that dovetailed quite nicely into the second song, Endure, which, you know, as you said, that we kind of covered at the kind of towards the end of last year. What's your thoughts? I'm kind of just delving into these kind of tracks one by one, but I mean, you were asking me there about the kind of composition of the album. Do you feel as if you're in agreement with me, or would you kind of disagree that?
I feel that they've, over 57 minutes, they've done enough to keep it interesting. I would say. I think there's a lot of good songs on here. I'm not sure if I would agree that it kind of dips from Oblivion onwards, because I've picked out Oblivion, Step Into the Light and Eat You Up, which are the tracks 5, 6 and 7, and I've picked those out as like 3 of my favourite songs. So it's interesting, but I agree with you that the track 1, All Must Go, is an absolute belter, and there's stuff on here that reminds me a bit of like the Fades that we covered last time, like some of the kind of style and instrumentation, some of the funky guitar parts that are in here. I think I mentioned when we talked about Endure that the vocals reminded me of like Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction, but I hear like stuff that sounds a bit like Bob Dylan in places as well. Like,
well, I thought Lou Reed. Reed.
Yeah.
But then there was also times where, was it Eat You Up? I think it is Eat You Up. There was times, I think there was maybe just certain inflections in the vocals that reminded me of kind of like Johnny Rotten, like from Public Image Limited rather than the Sex Pistols. They were quite an avant-garde kind of outfit back in the day. Oh, there's one song, I'm trying to remember which one it was, but We Are All, almost for my money, kind of sounded like a kind of stripped back version of Time Zone's World Destruction, which was in an episode of The Sopranos. But it features Johnny Rotten in it, and I think it was that connection again. It was to do with his vocals. There was just something about that, certain inflections it was making. And interestingly, both the sentiment of We Are All and Time Zone's World Destruction are quite similar. I don't know if there is a kind of relation there or not, But yeah, I can get the kind of Bob Dylan reference there as well.
Yeah, it's just that kind of sort of slightly
Nasally.
yeah, but which is quite cool. There's one of the things that stood out to me on this album was the bass,
Bass is
and
phenomenal.
a lot of the bass lines, like the opening track's got a really fat, kind of silky bass tone. I've written down it's one of the best bass tones I've ever heard. Like it's such a good tone, and Endura's got that really driving bass line that drives that song along. The track Oblivion has got one of the hardest bass lines on the album. It's really electronic fuzz to it. It's even quite doomy. Like, it reminded me of a band called Grave Lines. They're quite a lot heavier, but it was just that kind of sort of doom laden kind of groove that comes in on Oblivion that reminded me of them. Although it sort of jumps between that and then the sort of psychedelic stuff that's all over the rest of the album. And Eat You Up has another it's got a really heavy electronic, but I think the bass is really heavy on that as well. And there's parts of that song that reminded me of the Pearl Jam song Go. So it's a bit of sort of grunge, hard rock stuff in there as well. So definitely a lot of cool stuff. Like We Are All You picked out, that's got another great bass line. There's a bit of slap funk to the bass there, a little bit more punky in the guitars. And I think We Are All, Eat You Up, Oblivion, Step Into the Light. In fact, it reminded me a bit of a David Bowie song, like Space Oddity, a little bit of Space Oddity in there. I got a little bit of a T-Rex vibe from that as well.
I think there smacks all that type of classical rock in there, because I've said, Under the Dirt, we've kind of missed that. Like, that's a cracking song as well. It opens with a kind of real bluesy, old school rock guitar riff. The way it's kind of composed and the way it's put together kind of really put me in mind of old Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac song, an old Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac song called Oh Well. But there's a bit of Floyd in there as well, and not in that song necessarily, but there's definitely touches of kind of Floyd throughout the course of the album. It's interesting you mentioned Space Odyssey there as well. Obviously that's a David Bowie song, but the last song, Walking to Nowhere, put me in mind of the song Echoes by Pink Floyd, which is in Stanley Kubrick's Echoes, and just that ending where you hear that kind of like like that kind of weird noise just reminded me of that scene from Space Odyssey when he's kind of travelling through time and space.
Oh yeah, that section, that's the section I always remember. That film is like, well, I was like, I'm out of this film, like I've had enough, because it's like goes on for about 20 minutes, it feels like.
Yeah.
We're sitting watching it on like a Sunday afternoon with my granddad or something, and we were sitting watching this bit where he's like, it's just all these psychedelic covers for about 20 minutes just going brrr. And I was like, I can't, I'm done. Like, this is too...
Fuck this, granddad.
Yeah. So anyway, but I really like Walking to Nowhere. Actually, it's one of the longest songs on the album, but it's definitely one of the best, and it's got like a lot of quite straight up hard rock moments in it as well, which I really liked. And there's a bit where it goes almost hardcore punk as well. It's got some of the heavier moments, but then also like some kind of 90s radio rock style melodies as well.
Yeah. What was your what did you rate it?
So I've just gone for a solid 8 out of 10 for this. It's just like, really enjoyable, grungy, psychedelic, hard rock album. And like you were saying, like musically, like the performances from every member of the band are just brilliant across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I've kind of said similarly. Brilliantly produced, put together, top drawer musicianship, a lot of depth and texture to all the songs. Yeah, my one criticism, and that was just in my opinion, was just that kind of wee dip in energy. However, in my notes I did say that I seem to remember when we were covering Endure, I think the song Endure was about, it was kind of love and loss, dealing with pain, and then finding redemption in love, I think, I want to say. So I wonder, I've said, in terms of the kind of musical composition, it's interesting that they've put Oblivion, which is kind of track number 5, next to Step into the Light, because I thought maybe it's about, like, okay, I'm just waxing lyrical here, but I mean, like, Oblivion, you said, is that kind of moody, Sabbath-esque, kind of fuzzed up, sludgy guitar riff, and then in the next song you've got kind of Step into the Light, which is a much more kind of brighter sounding song. So I wonder if that's maybe deliberate in that respect, and if you were to kind of spend the time to kind of sit down and listen to the lyrics, maybe there is a kind of story there that you could maybe kind of follow throughout. Don't know if that makes any sense.
I mean, I don't know if there's a concept or running theme for the album, but there's definitely socially conscious lyrics, and I think quite a lot to unpack in there. I mean, it is nearly an hour long, so I think there's a lot to unpack. If you dive into it over and over again, you'll keep finding things, and pick out themes that run through these songs and stuff like that. So it's a cool album. So that was The Great Nothing by Magna Zero.
My story. Oblivion. Step into the light with me now. Oh, you run from and suffer to destroy. I wanna eat it up. I wanna eat you up. Statues of greed, worship obsessions. Scope the truth, capture corrections. So shut down your mind and come with me. It's not finished. It's finished.